Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I presume you know this statement, which was made some weeks ago at the party congress of the Christian Democratic Party of Germany by one of the closest aides of Angela Merkel. Europe speaks German now. And given my patriotic attitude as a German, I felt I should speak about the role being played of Germany in Europe in the course of the European crisis now, which I feel, as I'm deeply concerned about it, is not part of the solution. It's much more part of the problem, maybe even the biggest part of the problem. Some 15 years ago, a group of US-American economists published a book titled "Beware the US Model." It was the phase when the United States economy was hailed all over the world as a role model due to its strong growth. And these economists highlighted aspects such as the growth of the low-wage sector in the United States, the rising inequality, and in fact, these were the trends which were very much the root of the subprime crisis in the US, which sparked the worldwide financial and economic crisis in 2007, 2008. Today, we should speak, well, at least we Germans should talk to other Europeans, beware the German model. And I take a quote of Chancellor Merkel at the recent World Economic Forum in Davos, where she said, "It is not just the austerity measures that are crucial to her, or to the German government. The structural reforms are equally important for me. For example, the labor market reforms in Germany, known as Hartz IV, have led to massive improvements on the labor market." So there is an ironical aspect, by the way, to that statement, because she might not have become chancellor without these labor market reforms, because they were so unpopular that they gave this heaviest blow to the Social Democratic Party since 1949 in federal elections in Germany. So I'd be anxious to know what Gerhard Schröder is telling Nicolas Sarkozy when he's explaining the importance of labor market reforms in Germany to him. Anyway, there is a serious aspect to this. What is she actually advertising when she's speaking about massive improvements on the labor market? If you look at the employment growth in Germany after these so-called labor market reforms, I mean, I wouldn't call them sensational, would you? It can't be this. Maybe it's this. This is really surprising. If you compare it to other countries, employment development in Germany in 2008, 2009, the stability on the labor market in the crisis, this is what was called the German employment miracle, in fact. But this was caused by internal flexibility. The labor market reforms were targeted to an enhancement of external flexibility on the labor market. The employment miracle during the crisis was due to internal flexibility, in particular to working time flexibility and a short-time working scheme in Germany, which worked absolutely well. And why did companies agree on the use, extensive use of short-time working, internal flexibility, what they call labor hoarding? They agreed on this because they were interested in maintaining their skilled staff. And when I'm talking about skilled staff, I'm not just talking about engineers in Germany. I'm talking about the bulk of workers with vocational training who are really the, say, the human resource of the highly efficient German manufacturing industry. And if you like, the German export machine. There is a human resource for that. And they wanted to keep it. That was the economic interest behind internal flexibility in the crisis. But this is not what Angela Merkel is advertising. She is advertising something else. The drop in unemployment figures, the drop in registered unemployment before the crisis. Due to, well, in contrast to only a slight improvement of employment, the drop in registered unemployment. So what's behind that? There are many reasons behind it, not only statistical reasons, which obviously are part of it. And one of the reasons you can see if you look at this line. This indicates the development of recipients of the so-called unemployment benefit number 2, which is a means-tested unemployment benefit introduced by these so-called labor market reforms. These are people who are available, officially available, to the labor market, but for some reasons, many reasons, earn not enough money to, not enough money, so they may get a means-tested benefit. That means there are many working poor amongst these people. So if you like, it's only one aspect behind this, contradictory development in the labor market statistics, if you like. This is reflects the growth in, not only the growth in working poor population in Germany, it reflects also the wider context and the wider impact of these labor market reforms, which is an enormous pressure on wages of all workers, almost all workers, after the introduction of these labor market reforms, together with many other aspects of these labor market reforms, including the fostering of temporary agency labor and all other things. And the pressure on wages was intended. It was not coincidental. And this is what happened, actually. This is the distribution of wages, of wage earners. The gray line is before the so-called labor market reforms. The black line after, two years or so after the introduction of the labor market reforms. What you see is the melting down of the average wage earner, the share of average wage earners, to the benefit, in brackets, to the benefit of low wage earners at the left-hand side of the graph. The share of low wage earners has soared over the past 10 years, impressively. We have a low wage sector in Germany close to the share of the United Kingdom. This is the story behind the stagnation of average wages in Germany over the past 10 years. Average wages. Real wages virtually stagnated over the past 10 years and occasionally dropped even. And the flip side of it is the soaring current account surplus of Germany with the rest of the Eurozone since the introduction of the euro, and in particular over the second half of the past decade. And this is, again, not coincidental. The reason behind it is that the balancing mechanisms which existed before the introduction of the euro were switched off. And the combination of product-based competitiveness, well, competitiveness based on the high quality of products exported by German manufacturing industries to all over the world, in particular other Euro countries, was combined with a stagnation of average wages, and so it was combined with a drop in labor unit costs. So many people today say, not only abroad, also in Germany, Germany exports too much. I would not agree. The problem is Germany does not import enough. Due to the stagnation of average wages, the stagnation of the the domestic market in Germany, the German economy does not give the leeway to other countries to import into Germany, to export into Germany. That's the problem behind these figures. And obviously, it was quite beneficial for some people in Germany. This is the drop in wage share, and it's might well the reflecting thing is the rising profit share of Germany, in Germany over the past 20 years. And the drop in the wage share as percent of GDP is really the massive. This is the massive impact behind the stagnating domestic market, so that the largest economy within the Eurozone is really working like a millstone for the rest of the monetary union. And quite obviously, German elites are very much interested in defending this privilege, in defending this model. No doubt about this. And this is one of the two reasons behind the politics of German government at present in handling the European crisis. The defense of the advantage in what I'd call a misconceived or short-sighted understanding of national economic interests. And the second element, the second reason behind is dogmatism, pure dogmatism based on neoliberal ideology and monetaristic beliefs. And the outcome of the austerity regime which is being imposed on Europe, on the Eurozone, has been analyzed by the International Monetary Fund. Researchers of the IMF have found, they have analyzed the impacts of short-term austerity policies on GDP and unemployment over the past 30 years all over the IMF countries. And what they found is the low line, the blue line, is the drop in GDP caused by short-term austerity policies, and the red line, I think it's red, I'm sort of colorblind, maybe green or brown, I don't know. The red line, the upper line, is the rise in unemployment rates caused by short-term austerity policies. So they know better. They know better. They should act differently within the Troika in Greece, I think, but they know better. And there is a gap between what they know and what they do, what they're doing. And what it makes even worse, again, a quote of Angela Merkel at the Davos, her Davos keynote speech, referring to Greece and Spain, she said, there has been much more progress recently than we have seen for many years. And what she's talking about, what are these structural reforms to boost competitiveness? Let's take the example of Greece. Structural reforms to boost competitiveness. include weakening of dismissal protection, precedence of firm level over sector collective agreements, suspension of extension of collective agreements, reduction of overtime pay, greater leeway for temporary contracts, and the call of the Troika. I think it's government policy already now. I wrote this two days ago, minimum wage reduction. And quite similar in Spain, weakening of dismissal protection, precedence of firm level over sector collective agreements, no more limits for consecutive temporary contracts. Given a share of more than 30% of temporary contracts in Spain, freeze of the minimum wage in the private sector, pension age at 67, and so on. These are the structural reforms to boost competitiveness. This is what really what Paul Krugman, looking at the USA, called a triumph of failed ideas. And we took that formula, if you like, a triumph of failed ideas, the failed ideas of neoliberal approaches to labor market, deregulation as the main tool to boost competitiveness. We took that quote of Krugman, and as a title of our book, A Triumph of Failed Ideas, European Models of Capitalism in the Crisis. So it includes 10 country chapters on how the crisis is being managed, or one should better say mismanaged, in 10 European countries. It includes, on top of it, an interesting article of a leading German trade union officer on trade union strategy in Europe, and in particular a very, very instructive chapter on economic and austerity governance at the EU level, written by 3 colleagues of the ETUI. I recommend you very much to read this book, and I thank you for your attention.